This is having to go back into the history books of Sam Allardyce. This is.
And I come in at half-time and Sam absolutely tore me a new one. And then you see it in the Premier League where they're going absolutely mental, throwing their arms at a fourth official and nothing gets done because they're the big names.
Birmingham you were linked with.
Yeah, it would have been one that I would have probably considered just because of the history I have with the club as a player and as a manager. The black and white version of it is if you like, I've released someone who scored in the Champions League final. So it's not a good storyline, that one, is it? You know, but
every touch now, players are going down, going, that's going to go to VAR. They're going to look at it in slow motion.
Okay.
They're going to give us a penalty.
When a player claimed his dog had eaten his pre-season programme, so he couldn't find it. He couldn't find it.
Happy New Year, everybody! And I feel like I'm still allowed to say that because it is the first No Tippy Tappy Football brought to you by William Hill of 2024 and the first of many and many, we do hope. And Happy New Year, Sam. You are looking fresh.
Oh, no, it's a nice little break in sunny Dubai, like when everybody's freezing cold over here. So wonderful time with the family. That's absolutely brilliant.
I saw your pictures on your social media. You were looking like you were having a brilliant time.
It was great. It was great. And obviously get the feedback here when the weather weren't so good was always makes us feel that little bit better. But wonderful place to spend New Year.
Well, before we introduce our guest today, I just want to, I don't know if you know, Sam, we have a look at our stats for people that watch and listen to us. So if you are currently listening to us on the podcast, we also have a YouTube. So we film this, you get the whole episode on YouTube. We have our own YouTube channel. We've just gone over 20,000 subscribers on the No Tippy Tappy YouTube. But what we noticed, Sam, was 93% of people who have watched us in the last month are not subscribed to us. So people are coming on, watching the show, like dipping in and out of No Tippy Tappy Football and then going off. So we'd like people to subscribe.
We would, yeah, we would. Well, we'll try and do our very best while we're here today to keep improving if we can, Natalie, and make sure with our wonderful guests that everybody's interested to subscribe in the end after they've had a look. So that would be great. It would be obviously wonderful to keep building the audience. We really love doing this. I'm sure you love it as much as I do.
I love it. And I want us to do it over the summer and I want us to do it next year. And if you subscribe, it means we can keep getting better guests. It means we'll get more money off William Hill.
That's true.
And we can get better guests. So that's the plan. Thank you. Right. Would you like to introduce your guest today?
This is having to go back into the history books of Sam Allardyce. This is. So this lad is obviously way back to 1995. When I was Blackpool manager, and I am sure he's got some very good stories of a madman, a young manager at Blackpool trying to make his way at that time. So I got Gary Rowett on loan from Everton to come to Blackpool. I think he played 17 games that season late on, and he's joined us today. So Gary, welcome. Had a fantastic career himself, not just as a player but as a manager. And we'll have to find out whether he still wants to get back in or not. But Gary, thank you very much for coming.
It's a pleasure. Yeah, looking forward to it.
I'm so excited, Gary, because you were just telling us a little bit before we came on about Sam. So we always like to know, how do you know each other?
Well, I don't know how much censorship there is on this podcast.
None. You can say anything you want.
Brilliant. No, yeah, I mean, I remember I had a couple of options at Everton at the time. I joined there, and a typical 19-year-old think, why am I not playing every week? I can't believe it. So desperate to play football, and I think I had an option of Southend, where Peter Taylor was at the time, and a Sam at Blackpool. And Blackpool was an hour away. I'd sort of chatted to them. I really liked the idea of it. They were a division below Southend, but it didn't bother me. I just wanted to go and play football. I hadn't played for a while. And I remember distinctly one story. It was a real eye-opener. And I look back now as a manager and I can really appreciate the moment, but probably not quite so much as a player at the time. I think we played Brighton. I'm sure it was Brighton away, which shows how brilliant they've done because it was League Two at the time. And I think it was the old Goldstone
Stadium,
ground. I think it was the old one. And I was playing in midfield and I thought I'd done all right first half. And I come in, I think I played about 5 or 6 games at this point for Blackpool. And I come in at half time and Sam absolutely tore me a new one. I'm talking like the whole half time. I'm thinking, is there anyone else in the team that's played badly? And I'm sat there, and typical of the way I'd respond, I'm sat there quiet and I am raging. I'm raging, and I'm thinking, I'm going out there second half. I'm going to go and kill someone. I'm literally ready to go to war.
Exactly what I needed.
And that was a lesson I learned. So straight away, I played really well second half, and about 2 days later down the corridor, Sam went, "How angry were you when I had a go at you?" And he was laughing about it. And I kind of realised he'd done it on purpose. And it was a real eye-opener of how a manager would motivate a player in a different way, because most managers, you put your arm around them. But Sam knew how I ticked even at that point, even, after sort of 5 or 6 games. So yeah, that was one of quite a few stories, but it was a good time. I really enjoyed it. We had Bobby Saxton was assistant at the time, and Bobby was
funny, wasn't he?
Great character, and Sam was crazy and screaming at everyone all the time. But it was a really, really good period. So yeah, very enjoyable. Long time ago though.
Have you used that technique on any of the players you've managed?
I've tried it a few times, maybe intentionally and not intentionally every now and then. But I think I wouldn't say management's changing, but I think the players are certainly changing in the way that they take on board criticism. I think you're getting to a point now where it's very difficult to criticise a player in the same way in front of the,
True.
Like I grew up in an autocratic household where you're used to just getting told what to do, aren't you? So you're getting told what to do by a manager at halftime. You kind of take it on the chin. You might not like it. You might not like the feeling, but you'd usually roll your sleeves up and do something about it. But I think nowadays it's probably harder to do that.
Yeah, I drifted away slowly but surely. There's still room for it, of course, like I mean, because there are times when there is no planning and there is just raw emotion. And the raw emotion would come out every now and again. With me personally, this is obviously a personal point of view, would come out of it. There is no tactical words to say. There is just, what the hell are you doing and who do you think you are? The way you're performing today. And obviously you do not want that to happen that often. If it does happen that often, you're not going to keep your job very long, of course. But what you do look at is that as life gets more comfortable for players, as youngsters are brought up, as they are affected more by that sort of criticism, as everybody in the world is saying that's become now what, bullying or whatever you might call it. It was the land of the normal for us, and of course there is still a room for addressing down in the right way to get the right response. And as a manager in today's world, this is my world, my response when that happens, which is, like I said, not that often now, is looking at what happened after. And of course, the way to look after is look at the data and watch how much the data's gone up when you've given that dressing down. So you see an increase in the level of performance. You might not see an increase in the result, but you've certainly had the effect by the increase in performance that the players have given you after that bit of a roasting, So you can obviously say that every now and again, and obviously it has to be every now and again, and hopefully never or very rare, but it does serve its purpose on occasions.
I think it's definitely time to use it, isn't it?
Yeah.
I mean, you know what football's like. Sometimes you can make a tactical change at half time. Sometimes you can say very little, and that says everything. Sometimes you can say a lot. And I think you can never get away from the emotions of it, can you? You can affect a second half performance with what you say. And sometimes it can be nothing to do with tactics. It can just be to do with endeavour or attitude or whatever. So I don't think it's ever going to go away. But I think players' view of it now is probably, not the norm for them. And I think they find it hard. If you were to do it every week, I think they would find it difficult to cope with.
It's so interesting that side. We don't see the skills of managers, to be able to know that that's how that would inspire. It's so interesting. When I knew you were coming on last week, I was really looking forward to talking to you. But to be honest, I did wonder if you would actually be here, because you're being linked with every job going at the minute. So the latest one...
That's a good thing, by the way.
Very
if you're
good
sat
thing.
at home, and you think, well, and then all of a sudden somebody might be interested, and it gets your senses tingling a bit. You think, well, I get an interview for that, and should I take it, or should I, wait a bit longer, or is it not the right time for me to go back in?
Well, this is what we would like to know. So Birmingham you were linked with.
Yep.
Was that? Did you? I mean, I mean, I want to get into the kind of the process as well. Did you interview for that? Is that what happened?
No. I had a phone call about it. I think you often do. I had a sort of dialogue with my agent as to whether there was genuine interest. I think the interest was probably more just down to the fact that I'd left there previously. And we'd had a good time there, and sometimes you look and you think, is that a realistic one? Can I see myself getting that job? And I never truly felt I would get the job, But of course, every job until you know what the parameters are, and until some you fancy, some you don't. But until you speak to clubs and you speak to people, it's hard to truly know whether it's the right one for you. And obviously, you don't always get offered them. Sometimes it might be the right one for you and you don't get it, or sometimes it's not the right one for you and you get offered it, and you sort of got to make a decision at the time, for different reasons. So, that wasn't one that. It would have been one that I would have probably considered just because of the history I have with a club as a player and as a manager, but it wasn't one I truly felt I would get.
I was shocked it went so bad for Wayne. Because it's
really bad, didn't it?
True football man, loves football that much. Doesn't have to be a manager, but wants to be, and. Picked up experience at Derby in very difficult times, and then out in America. And, obviously they put a lot of faith in him, the owners of Birmingham, bringing him back, because the previous manager must have been absolutely gutted when he lost that job. Because I think there was sixth, wasn't it?
They were in the playoffs, yeah. John Eustace, yeah.
But then you see, I listened to previously, they weren't playing the right way, apparently. I was playing a different way, So obviously, Wayne's format was like to play more so-called football, but that's cost him his job, really, because obviously that group of players, or should I say squad of players, it's not a group, it's a squad, were not capable. And then without changing his style and getting through that period till he could, he's ended up losing his job, which is, just rather sad when you've worked with him. I worked with him at Everton and know how much he loves football.
Interesting though that somebody that's obviously a world class footballer like Wayne Rooney was, or a world class footballer like Steven Gerrard, or a world class footballer like Frank Lampard. Why is it not translating, do you think? I mean, is there any correlation between being a world class footballer and a good manager?
I think there's some correlation in as much as you'd have to manage in a different way. I think straight away you've got instant respect from the players just because of your career. Yeah, you can show players examples of what you've done, and I always think and I always think about this from my perspective. I've never worked I have, of course, Sam, but I've never worked at a top level club with top level coaching at sort of Champions League. So I don't know what top level looks like necessarily, whereas someone like Wayne Rooney does. I think the challenge is once you stood on the sideline in your tracksuit or your suit, that kind of counts for very little. And you've got to find a way, your methods to get
so
the best out of players. So is it the nail on the head?
The coaching becomes only a small part of your job and your life as a manager. And of course, as we've moved into head coaches instead of managers now, which I think is extremely sad, particularly in the Premier League. But you deal with the players on a day-to-day basis, and your job on dealing with the players is less about actual. If you're a coach, you want to coach all the time. If you're a manager, you're responsible for bringing the whole tactics.
Don't you think that's part of the challenge though now with modern day football in essence, that part of success as a manager was always getting more out of the players than they're capable of doing, or getting the best out of a group of players to win games. I think the challenge now is sometimes that scene's already set before you go into a club. You have to play this way, and that way at the moment is everyone wants to dominate possession, everyone wants to score loads of goals, everyone wants to be really attacking, and you understand that because everyone wants that. We all want to win games and play great football and score loads of goals. But if you can't do that, surely winning and defending well also, is part of the game. It's never going to not be part of the game, is it? But you can't say that now, can you? That's the problem.
No, you can't. It's not if you're a young coach, that's for sure.
If you're a young coach, and I've always felt as though you'd rather just be authentic and whatever happens, and that's your career, because you've got to be true to yourself, haven't you? And sometimes being honest actually in football now works against you in certain situations.
But Gary, those facts are wrong, because if you don't defend correctly, you won't win anything.
No.
Because
Best defence wins the league.
Best defence wins the World Cup. Best defence wins the Champions League.
Yeah.
Best defence gets you out of a relegation zone.
Well, best defence gives you a chance to attack all the time, doesn't it?
Everybody thinks that's negative and it's distracting from how you play in possession. It doesn't distract from how you play in possession, because it gives you more possession.
Of course it does. Yeah.
That's what all the the white noise keeps going on about. You know what I mean? And it's affected the game, or affected young managers too much. Like I mean, so it's a great shame. I hope it changes, because it's going through this period, but it will change and become more sensible. It's not really realistic at the moment.
No, football always
comes back
cycles,
again,
doesn't it? It's like anything, isn't it? People start playing a back five all the time, and everyone plays a four, and then everyone presses high, it all comes right when you've been in it long enough.
Yeah, well, all in the Premier League, and don't get me wrong, it's great if you can do it, but lots of coaches are looking, I want to do a Pep and push the right back into midfield or the left back into midfield. Well, that's fine if he's capable. No problem at all. Gives you another dimension, because generally they play one up front, so you leave your two centre-halves watching. It gives one more midfield player the opportunity to get forward and create and score a goal. But if your full-back goes in there and misses and loses the ball, and the opposition break on you against two centre-halves, and all of a sudden you've lost a goal, like you mean. So it's relevant if they're capable of actually handling that situation.
I'm glad you never pushed me into midfield, that's for sure.
I know,
right back. I only played there once and I got absolutely hammered at half time. So I preferred it at right back, staying and defending. So.
I mean, you're in the right company here. Sam is always going on about the importance of defending and the need for defending. In terms of it seems like a really silly question. It might do to you, but to me, from someone that has no experience, I'm actually really interested in what and how you apply to be a manager. So if a championship job comes up, and I read as well that you were linked to the Rotherham job, and I think I read you said that wasn't the right fit for you. What happens when a job comes up? What does your agent do? What's the process? Is there an application form?
No. Well, it might be for some people, but I think when you've been in it a while, you don't tend to do that. I mean, Rotherham it was probably the wrong timing, really. I'd only been out for 3 or 4 weeks, and I just felt I needed a little bit more time just to get myself back energy wise to really want to take a job on. Look, I don't think it really changes. I think most of the time, you're looking for a job, your agent rings the clubs or is in contact with the clubs, or the clubs will contact your agent, or they'll contact you directly, or however that works. They'll probably narrow that process down to maybe 5 or 6 people. You'd go and meet them. You'd usually go and meet maybe a director of football, a chief exec first. Yeah. If you then get through that sort of process, you then probably meet the owner and the board in the final sort of stages of an interview. And then you just sit there waiting, usually. I mean, I've done it before where I've thought, I've not heard anything for a week, so I must not be getting the job. Because often there's a little period you think, well, someone else must be getting it. And they're obviously in talks at the moment, because it usually takes a little bit of time. So there's that sort of awkward period where you're waiting around and you're thinking, well, maybe my interview wasn't as good as I thought it was. And you just wait. And sometimes you'll get that call and say, look, they're really keen, and you can work it out and get all the contract sorted. And sometimes you don't get a call. I've had it before where, when I was a young, it's really interesting. And I say this to a lot of young coaches. I've got a lot of ex-players of mine that are now starting to coach. I mean, I'm showing my age a little bit now, but are starting to coach, starting to manage, and they'll ring me up and they'll say, oh, what about this? What about that? And or players trying to be a manager or be a coach, and they don't know how to go about it. And I said, I put in for so many jobs before I got a manager. I put in for the Bucks. I put in for the Buxton job, the Alfreton job, the Ilkeston job. I didn't. No disrespect to these clubs, but I didn't even get a message back. I didn't even get a phone call back.
Yeah.
And you're a former player applying.
And it's a horrible feeling, because you kind of sat there thinking, what have I got to do to? And then you maybe get into a club. And sometimes that's the best way of becoming a manager in the end, because now you're in a job, you're in football. So there's so many things that happen and go on, and it can be such a negative experience sometimes for an ex-player who wants to be a coach. But I think you've just got to keep persevering. There's no easy way of doing it, and there's no one process that's the same always or all the time.
I think that's telling you how hard it is, Natalie.
Yeah.
doesn't matter what you've achieved as a footballer unless you're a top footballer. We talk about obviously Wayne and Steven Gerrard and that, like, you know, they have the easier route because they're going to get a job based on what they achieved as a player, and probably rightly so. And if they can adapt and move into management and cope with that situation, they're going to always get the opportunity. Whereas when you're coming out of the game and you're looking to get in, I had exactly the same problem. Loads and loads of CVs not responded to, few interviews at non-league level, Northwich, Victoria, Kidderminster. No, you know, somebody said you're overqualified. You'd be too good for us, or you know what I mean. It's, well, you know, yeah, you know. So, you know, and so you have to keep going. And when you keep going, you finally will get a break somewhere. Mine ended up in after West Brom, where I was only assistant manager. It ended up at Limerick. But who's prepared to go? And I think not all young coaches wouldn't be prepared to do that. You know, I think Dean Smith's gone abroad now.
Yeah, he's got the Charlotte job, didn't he?
Yeah, so he's gone and
MLS.
packed his bags and gone. Well, you know, nobody wants me here. Then I want to keep managing because I know how good I am, and he is very, very good indeed. And you know, should still be managing in the Premier League for me, but he's finding that difficult again. So he goes manages somewhere else, and hopefully he enjoys it.
There does seem to be so many good managers out there at the minute. I've seen you've been doing media work. Are you enjoying that? Is it piquing you at all, or are you still getting back into management in the future?
No, I mean, I love the media side of it. I love, you know, doing things like this because you're talking about football.
Yes.
I think ultimately, people don't realise that when you're a manager and everyone's, you know, you're there to be criticised, aren't you? And you know what it's like. 99% of people are happy, and one person says something reasonably okay about it. Yeah. That's just the ratio you have to.
And you go, play that again. I want to listen to that one again.
Just keep looking at the same quote on social media. Yeah, I know. There's only so many times you can ask your parents to put quotes on. But I think, you know, but ultimately we all fall in love with a game. And I love the game. I would watch the game I still look at it and think, I'm not actually doing a real job like most people do, because I would sit at home on an evening and watch a match. I would watch any match, you know, and I would talk about football and I would read about football. And so I think if it's a passion, you want to be doing it. I'd hate the thought of having a month with no football and nothing to do with it, because that would be difficult. I don't necessarily need to be in it every second of every day, but I think you want to be part of it. And I think doing the media stuff allows you to watch matches, allows you to talk to people in the game. And I think that's what it's about. I want to manage again, of course, you know, and whenever that happens, I'll be ready to go and do it, you know, because I've loved, you know, I'm sort of 500, I'm nowhere near.
Where will you go again? Because obviously we talked about, you know, Karl.
I want to talk about Karl in a minute, Salford, because
you know what I mean.
Yes.
Because you know, and you know, this is, with all due respect to Salford, a fantastic job, well-run football club by the class of '92 and all that, and achieved getting in the league, which is absolutely fantastic. But it is my opinion, watching Karl and what he's done and what he's achieved. It's, you know, he can't get where he should be.
Yeah. Yeah,
which is at least Championship, you know, trying to get into the Premier League, because that's his only way forward. So, you know, I find it, you know, I find it quite disturbing, if that's the right word, not disturbing, you know, upsetting that they don't get an opportunity like him. I mean, when they've got a proven CV, you know, then. And maybe the culture has changed, and I think we talked about that before. That they're looking at, I don't know what to call the coaches now. They're looking at us, I don't know, a stat coach or a young coach that's talked about or has got a great presentation on his laptop. Like, I mean, you know, I sussed out that a presentation on the laptop was everything years ago when I was moving forward to get another job. Not in the early stages, and then went, ooh, what's this like? You know, laptop stuff. You know what I mean? Let's put that together. And when I go for an interview, I'll go and put it up on the board. You know what I mean? And it's amazing how many people get a job with that.
Well, I think,
you know what I mean. It's
yeah.
like,
But if you're a young, I suppose if you're a young coach, and that's not to denigrate.
No, not at all.
Some
No,
really good ones out there. You know, like
there's going to be some very good ones come out of it.
Absolutely. But if you've never managed before, you can say whatever you want in a presentation, can't you? You know, you've got nothing. This is how I'm going to play. This is what I'm going to do, and it can look incredible. The challenge when you've been managing for 10 years, 20 years, you know, the proof's in the pudding, and you can't get away from that, can you? You can present what you want, but actually the experiences are there, and if people want that and want the type of manager that they think you are, then you're going to get that job or not get that job. And I think that's, you know, I don't think that's ever going to change. I think a presentation is not going to help you, is it, when you're 2-0 down away from home?
No, not at all.
On a Tuesday night.
Your experiences and your knowledge or how good you might be.
Yeah.
No matter how experienced or inexperienced you are, you have to handle that situation and make it better.
Yeah. Yeah, and it's experiences, I think, that help you. It doesn't mean that you're going to be better than someone with no experience. But I think for me, again, I just love football, so I like the idea of working abroad somewhere just as a different experience. I mean, I know everyone says that, but I think realistically for me, I've been in the Championship now for best part of 10 years. You know, I think I've, you know, had teams up and around and in the playoffs.
Anxiety, not the right word. The desire to get in the Premier League has been so close for you that you really, you know,
it's the one thing that kills.
The one thing that does kill you, isn't it?
It's the one thing that kills.
You've not managed to have a go. You know,
I left Burton. We were third in the league. I think we would have gone up that year. They did go up, but I felt I had to go.
Yeah.
Derby, we were so close. Millwall, we were so close. Even Birmingham, we were pretty close. You know, in fact, ironically, the furthest away we probably were was Stoke, that we spent a lot of money and should have gone in the Premier League, but. I think for me, that's the one bit of unfinished business that I have. You know, I haven't had a promotion. And as much as you can say, I think I've done a good job. I've made teams better. I've left them in a good place. You know, every manager wants that feeling of being promoted. And in some ways, it gives me that motivation still. You know, maybe if I'd had it, maybe I'd be sat in now, not sure what I wanted to do. But actually, there's a little bit of fire burning that I want to get that. But at the same time, I think you just love the job. It's a great job. It's a brilliant thing to do. There's so many different aspects to it.
I always say it's not really a job for us.
No, it's not.
I say that about mine.
I say when I do leadership stuff and all that, like, I mean, well, you know, I left school at 15 and I'm 69 and never worked. And they all go, well, what do you mean? I said, well, it's never been a job for me.
Yeah.
It's my passion, it's my love, and I'm lucky enough to get paid for it. So when the football's who knew when the football stopped that the career would be so big in coaching and management terms? No idea whatsoever, but there it is. So that's how lucky I've been. Like, I mean, when you say lucky, you make your own luck, don't you? So when you get the opportunity, you make the best out of it.
I say that about my job all the time, Sam. It's not a job. That's why I smile so much, because I just love doing it. I want to talk about Karl in a second, because his first game in charge, Sam, we need to talk about it. So Karl's gone down to the second division, lower second division. And as Sam mentioned, obviously Karl was your assistant at Leeds. And at the time, I remember you were saying you wanted him to get that Leeds job. Championship would be the aim, a championship club that you can take up into the Premier League. But if needs be, would you do a Karl? Would you drop? Would it have to be the right club?
I think it would have to be the right club. It'd have to be the right sort of, you know, club that felt it was. I always think wherever you go, you want to go somewhere that's got a little bit of ambition about it, that wants to at least aspire to being bigger than what it is and better than what it is. I don't think you'd ever, as a manager, say. I mean, I've done League Two with Burton, and look, when you've had no international breaks for a season and you've had about 50 odd games, the Championship certainly is a good start. Is a good starting place. Yeah, So it's nice to be able to get away for a few times a year to recharge. But I don't think you never say never. I think, of course, you know, the Championship's a good opportunity, and financially it's obviously a better league and a lot of clubs in there, but I'm running out of clubs in the Championship as well, so I'm going to have to consider other leagues, aren't I? That's for sure.
So Karl Robinson is who we're talking about, friend of the show. He's been a guest twice on the podcast, 2 cracking episodes. If any Salford fans are watching, I would encourage you to go watch the episodes.
Dedicated, loves the job, you know, but you know, hopefully that the players can respond to him, because obviously they're in a bit of trouble down at the lower end of League Two, aren't they? You know,
they were in the playoffs last season as well. It's been a right drop off.
don't quite know what's happened, but obviously, football through and through, isn't it? Because like Gary, Giggsy, Butty, all there to help, I hope. And if they help Karl and give him the support that he needs, he'll be successful. I'm sure he will, because he's worked on zero budgets at most of the time. You know what I mean? It's particularly what he did at MK Dons, getting them into the Championship on probably the lowest budget ever, and then obviously Oxford right in the playoffs on really low budget, having to sell his best players. You know what I mean? For a club that eventually runs out of having to sell the best players, and you suffer the consequences and end up getting the sack. But he's never going to pack in because he loves it so much. You know what I mean? So I hope he brings them round and gets them going forward again.
I've covered Salford a lot in the last couple of years, and I really enjoy going. So I hope he does as well. But I want to talk about his first game, Sam. Oh. So 14 minutes into Karl Robinson's first game managing Salford, and he got himself sent off.
Yeah, but
what did you think?
I mean, he just tossed the ball away, and the referee. I mean, it's a yellow card at the most, isn't it? You know what I mean? That it's not controversial. It's not putting anybody in danger. It's not like he's not foul and abusive language. It's not anything like that. Like you mean? So, who knows? But of course, you're talking about one of my subjects again on referees again, aren't they? And their incapability of not down there, because I don't know, but certainly in the Premier League, it's still not getting any better, is it? But yeah, silly. I'm sure he regretted it, but he wouldn't have expected to get a red card for that one.
As soon as I saw it, I thought, what's he done? And then I did see it and think, is that all? Yeah.
I watched it. I think I was doing a game on the media, and I think it was one that they showed midway through the game. So you kind of watch it. You're trying to watch your own game, and you're watching it thinking, has he really got sent off for that? I mean, I know there was this big push in the summer. Samuel has sat in countless of these meetings where you sit there and they go, right, touchline behaviour, we need to sort this out. And you're thinking there's so many things that need sorting out. Surely touchline behaviours, the stakeholders want to see, better behaviour, blah, blah, blah. So there's all this big thing. And then you see it in the Premier League where they're going absolutely mental, throwing their arms at a fourth official and nothing gets done because they're the big names. And then suddenly Karl Robinson at Salford in his first game, it was literally just the lad went to throw it, didn't he? Okay, he probably shouldn't have done it, but it is a yellow card, that's it, isn't it? Or it's a talking to, but it's so crazy, isn't it? But he gets a red and he looked bewildered. I mean, I suppose that moment where you're thinking,
well, it's his
first game.
Oh, no.
I was in a short sleeve T-shirt as well, by the way. It was freezing.
Yeah. Crazy, that's a red card offence for starters.
Yeah.
Do you know what? My friend, I work in local radio a lot, and obviously you'll know as well that if you get sent off now this season as a manager, you aren't allowed to do any post-match interviews, which I'm guessing you might like as a manager, which I'll ask you.
But that's wrong, though.
Yeah.
But that's them covering it up there, the mistake of them actually being sent off or why they've been sent off, and everybody talks about freedom of speech, and there is none in this country. There is no such thing as freedom of speech anymore. So they're
because Karl wouldn't have been able to say what he thought,
he'd
get in more trouble.
More trouble, yeah. So I mean, and that's in every walk of life in this country now, like you mean. So cutting the manager off after he's been sent off, saying you can't do the media. Well, all right then. If you say I can't do the media, so when I don't fancy doing the media, I'll send me assistant.
That's a good point.
So then if you do that, then you get fined. I don't know, a lot of money.
We had one last year and it was so funny, honestly. We've obviously got the monitors and, we get the replays. So we'd had an incident, during the game we'd had an incident. The fourth kept saying to us, and I knew the fourth quite well, he kept saying, what's your analyst saying? What's your analyst saying? So he's looking at the screen going, he's saying it was offside. Oh, good. And we got to about 70 minutes in and there was a penalty. I said, it's a penalty. I've seen it on the screen. He said, you can't do that. I said, you've been telling me to look at it for most of the game, and you've been happy with that, and now I can't look at it.
Was it a penalty, or were you trying to fool him?
And it was I think the game we had like 4 penalties in the game that weren't given. One of those ones where you're starting to get raging. But honestly, it's like when they want to help, when they want you to use it, to help them, they'll use it. My biggest bugbear with it all, and obviously you could talk about this for hours, couldn't you? But it is what they say in the meeting in the summer.
Oh, absolutely.
And I've always said this. And I actually said this to Howard
yeah.
Webb said this to Howard Webb in the meeting, and he probably didn't like me for it. And I said, look, Howard, I think every manager would get behind whatever it is you guys want to do. But for God's sake, let's just be consistent. Because I've sat in these for 10 years, and after 5 games, you stop doing it. Yeah. And they're the bits that annoy people, you know. Yeah. So, and I think that's the hardest bit in it. They do something, and everyone, and there's 500 bookings on the opening day. It's like shirt pulling at corners, wasn't it? There's
12 minutes added on,
loads of penalties, 12 minutes added, and now you're looking, there's 3 minutes added on, and no one gets cautioned for kicking the ball away anymore. No. And it's like,
But what's more disturbing for me, and what's more disturbing in my opinion, watching this season, is the fact that we're encouraging faking penalties.
What do you mean?
Well, we're faking penalties because every touch now, players are going down, that's going to go to VAR. They're going to look at it in slow motion. They're going to give us a penalty. And most of these touches of contact are so slight that the players exaggerating it and going down. So
like Bruno Fernandes?
Absolutely. Yeah.
No,
you know what I mean?
Yeah.
You know, and it's gone. You go, no, surely not. And they go over and look at the screen and they go, penalty. So we were supposed to try to cut diving out, you know, and we're encouraging it because everybody knows that if you get a touch now and you go down, you're going to get a penalty looked at.
So you're saying you don't like the phrase contact with consequence, then, Sam?
So
is that what the official phrase is?
That's what they call it now, don't they? There's contact with consequence. And you kind of sat there going, well, if I tried to get you to the floor, it would take an awful lot for me to do it, wouldn't it? But
he could have stayed on his feet if he wanted to.
Yeah.
He didn't want to stay on his feet. He took a step and went down.
Yeah.
And that's it. I'm not blaming him for doing it. I'm not blaming anybody for doing it, because if you can take advantage, you take advantage. There's that much stake in it, that much stake on the game now. You buy whatever you possibly can buy. But you don't say to your players, or I always said to your players, make the referee's decision easy, but if you get him fouled in the box, go down. But I'm not asking you to go down if you just get the slightest of touch. I'm asking you to go down if you get a real touch. Because so many, I had this for years and years and years and years at the Premier League. You're not giving penalties unless the player goes down.
Being honest actually doesn't pay in the Premier League, does it? Or that's the challenge.
It's a big worry that it's you know, we're supposed to be trying to cut diving out, and it's encouraging more diving now than ever before.
You know what, I'd love to see the FA Cup become a competition with no VAR and have something that we have, you know, with nothing, as opposed to some of the grounds have got it and some of them haven't.
Well, I think it's absolutely out of order, the FA are allowing VAR anywhere in the FA Cup, because unless everybody's got it, if everybody hasn't got it, then nobody uses it, and it's left to the referee on the day. And I don't think we'd all be comfortable with that. To actually, they've got VAR, so use it. They've not got VAR, we can't. It's like really, you know, it's not something it's easy just saying you can't use VAR today because it's the FA Cup. Because not everybody has it. Would you agree?
Isn't it interesting though that because of VAR and everyone's talking about it, and then suddenly when you watch a game, because obviously in the Championship there's no VAR, so when you watch a game with a Premier League side and no VAR, it's now become so much more entertaining, I think, and I think it's really highlighted how bad VAR is. I've not done too many live games with VAR on, so I don't. When people are saying to me it's horrific, like at a game you're stopping, there's nothing going on.
Well, it isn't. They take 3 to 5 minutes.
Yeah. But you look at some of the FA Cup games, and they've actually been brilliant, because just a decision, you maybe talk about it, but it just carries on. It seems to be so much better, you know. So I wonder. Well, it's not going away, is it? Let's be honest.
Please excuse me, I just want to stop this episode quickly because Big Sam and I just want to say a huge thank you to you for supporting No Tippy Tappy Football, whether you are listening or watching or doing both. Sam and I absolutely love doing this podcast, and we couldn't do it without you. So take a second, please, and subscribe or follow wherever you are watching or listening to us. We're also on Twitter, No Tippy Tappy Football, and we have our own YouTube channel. I know everybody says it, but it really would mean a lot to us, and it means that we can keep getting bigger and better guests the more followers and the more subscribers we have. And then you can go and tell all your mates that you've done Big Sam a favour. So thank you for listening. We always ask our listeners if they would like to ask our guests any questions. If you would ever like to ask our guests or indeed Sam a question, you can get us on Twitter. No Tippy Tappy Football has a Twitter, and I also have a Twitter, so you can get either one of us on there. A question from Harry Guttridge, one of our listeners for you, Gary, has said, could you tell us what happened at Stoke, because he thinks you should have been given more time?
Oh, wow. It's one of the nicer questions I've had from
That's
a
a very
Stoke
good
fan. Yeah, look, I think as a manager, you can always look back, and if you've not been successful or supposedly been successful at the time, which of course, as Stoke manager when I went in, I knew, and that's why I took the job. I knew that the only way to be
Were you after Mark Hughes?
No, I was after Paul Lambert.
Paul.
So I knew the only way to be successful was to finish in the top two. And I've been offered it in the Premier League and I turned it down and all of those things. So, but people don't realise when you go into a club like that that's been in the Premier League for 10 years, and, I think they were the lowest scoring team and they'd conceded the most goals. So there was obviously issues, and they're quite an ageing team at the time.
Yeah.
And the first day I walked in, there was about 8 players at my door saying, I'm not playing in the Championship, more or less. So I think it was a slow burn. I always saw Stoke, and it's hard to really quantify that from the outside because it just sounds like you're trying to justify yourself. But it was a bit of an oil tanker that did need a bit of stopping and turning around.
Along.
Yeah, and there was a lot of issues, and I won't go into all the issues.
It's an hard job.
It's a tough job.
I took over West Ham. Boy, a relegated side is a hard job. It is absolutely brutal at the beginning, isn't it? I don't know what you felt.
Yeah, I found it really, really tough. Toughest job I've had by a mile. Yeah. And we got to a point, I think we were 3 points off the playoffs, but it just felt like you lost one game. There was so much negativity. Yeah. You might have won a game, but it just didn't put it off. And it just felt as though, yes, I didn't have enough time, in my opinion. And, I think the proof's been in the pudding of what Stoke's achieved since. No one's really managed to do it. So, but it is a regret of mine, and it's one that I felt that I generally failed. There's not many jobs I can look back and say I feel like I failed a little bit, but that one probably made me a better manager, made me a better coach. So, some of the things that would happen, it's like anything else. You can't really tell too many of the stories when you're managing at the time. You'd love to be able to tell the fans, because actually, but it would really open their eyes. I remember we played the first game against Leeds, and it was Bielsa's first game. We got absolutely battered at Ellen Road. And I remember an agent ringing me the next morning saying, the player that played for you in X position, he said, he's played like that on purpose because he didn't want to be there.
Yeah.
And I'm thinking, this is a game live on TV in my first game. And I'm thinking, wow. And I'll be honest, I got to that pre-season, I got to the first game of the season, and I thought, it feels like I've had about 3 seasons there already because it was so challenging.
Did you manage to get rid of him?
He went very quickly afterwards, yeah. So, but that's the challenges you have behind the scenes, and you get more than one of those. You got probably 20 different challenges like that, and yes, there's some jobs, aren't there, that they are tough just because of the nature of them, and some jobs that are a little bit easier than others.
Ooh, I feel like part of me that would want to be like, well, unlucky you're staying, so you better book your ideas.
Well, he might have been better than some of the others. I should have done that.
So we move on. We'll move on now to talk about some of the things that are going on in football right now.
Yeah.
So, I mean, I just want to immediately talk about this, Sam, just because it's Man City. Kevin De Bruyne is back.
Oh no,
Kevin De Bruyne is back.
We've missed him. Or I missed watching him anyway. That for certain. Man City, and I'm sure Peppers has missed him as well, and be glad and hopefully sees through to the rest of the season. But the injuries, I'm sure he will be careful with him. I'm sure he'll not play him in every game now. I'm sure he'll start him and then if they're in a winning position, bring him off and maybe, even though he won't want to, and he'll probably be very upset about it, probably rest him maybe here and there. Certainly in this early period, because Kevin De Bruyne fit to play, is going to make a massive difference to Man City if he can. It is his old form again, and they're an awesome team to deal with, but they'll be even more so if Kevin gets back to his normal self as quickly as possible. But I think we all look forward to looking back to his creativity and what he brings to the Man City team.
17 minutes to get an assist. When he was warming up, the crowd was cheering like City had scored. It was phenomenal. So there's the news that Kevin De Bruyne is back for City. On the Liverpool front,
We've gathered Natalie's a fan.
Yeah,
I'm getting the feeling.
I try and play
Unbiased.
it down.
She tries to be unbiased, but can't
Gary,
quite.
But yeah, but yeah, from trying to be an unbiased point of view, if Liverpool are going to be one of City's nearest contenders, how significant is Trent being injured and Salah going off now to AFCON for the month?
I think massively problematic for them in some ways. I mean, obviously they've got plenty of other good players, and you have to say at the moment, the fact that they have won the title puts them in a really interesting position, because there's a lot of the others who haven't quite done it. Arsenal, haven't quite been there and done it recently, but Liverpool have, and they look like they're on a little bit of a roll, don't they? So, I think this...
They were lucky against Arsenal this weekend. I watched the game and went, whoa, you've got out of jail with that one, I mean. So it's lovely when one of those pays off for you, because Arsenal have missed so many. It's a bit like Chelsea. You see Chelsea miss so many chances every week. Well, you're actually seeing Arsenal slipping up the same way at the moment, where the chances are being created, and much more than Liverpool had. But obviously Liverpool, it's a really good game to watch, that one, actually. I really enjoyed that one, I mean. And then in the end, Liverpool won it in the last, well, they won it just before that, but saw it off in the last minute with a 2-0. And it's big. It's a big worry for Arteta, I mean. So what can he get? You can't get anything in January to score goals.
No, I think FFP is going to stop them anyway.
I don't think you get anything in January. No. This is a bit over the top, this, I mean, but even with 200 million.
You think?
Well, who would want to sell their number one? So if you offered 200, would Bayern Munich sell Ali Kane now for 200 million?
No, of course it wouldn't. But...
I mean, Ivan Toney's the name that tends to get bandied around.
But Ivan Toney's going to take the best part of 6, 8 or 10 games to get up to speed, unless he's been super training. And he's super.
Has he been playing with the kids or the B team?
Super. Match practice is everything, isn't it? Yeah. Like, you can do as much training as you want, but then when it comes down to physically, mentally, and match practice, but he may be the type of lad that can deliver. He's becoming more popular now than he ever was when he played.
It's great, isn't it? How many players
more
are
people are being told to sign him when he's not playing than he was when he was playing.
Yeah,
I mean. So. What surprised me the other day, I had an argument with my mate saying he was 6'4", 6'5", and it says on the Premier League that he's barely 6'2". I thought he was much bigger.
He's grown while he's been out as well, Sam.
I mean, so but he's certainly an handful, and if he's the right man, and I'm not sure. I'm not so sure. Like I said before, it's you've got to play off Ivan Toney to get the best out of him.
Yeah,
which is what Brentford do. I mean, you saw Ivan Toney beat Man City away last year and win at the Etihad purely on the balls that were played up to Ivan Toney, and Man City not able to cope. But would Arsenal play like that? I'm not so sure they will.
No, I think he's got that belief as well, hasn't he? But he's developed.
What about his penalties?
It's absolutely incredible.
He's never missed one, has he?
You mentioned Trent earlier. I mean, it's really interesting because when I first, and again, look, who am I to criticise Liverpool players? But when I first watched Liverpool and I saw Trent at right back, and there's always that little thing, can he defend well enough? He's got great quality. And even going into midfield, I thought, is that really going to work? I have to say, when I've watched him recently, he's been absolutely
He's better off by far.
He's been outstanding. And I'm starting to look at him now thinking, there's very few midfielders around, apart from probably Bellingham, that actually can do what he can do in different ways. It's different. His range of passing, he's almost De Bruyne-like, isn't he, in the way that he plays in some ways.
The defensive side doesn't get, it's not as big a responsibility anymore, is it? No. Where he's always been slightly weak at that, in that area, So it's really suited him, and anybody that says it shouldn't be his permanent position, I think is barking up the wrong tree. Yeah. I think without any doubt that, it also saves Liverpool a lot of money buying a midfield player with that quality, because his range of passing, and what I like about his range of passing is most of the time he looks 30, 40, 50, 60 metres first. Not 5, 10 metres. He looks 20, 30, 40 metres on. Can he play somebody? And he has the capability of playing that long pass and breaking defences with just one ball.
Which suits Liverpool, doesn't it? Because
It
of the
does,
forwards that they have. They've got a lot of
Yeah.
runners. They've got energy.
But,
They've got,
but like you say, the effect of the African Nations Cup on anybody across the country. I don't know how many players are going this year to the African Nations Cup out of the Premier League, but it is. I've had 4 go at Bolton at one stage. What an hard job that was, seeing through that particular period. Like, I mean, very difficult.
Oh, it's playing havoc with my fantasy team as well, Sam. I've got Salah, Son, I've got Trent who's injured, I've got Bowen who's injured. I don't know what I'm going to do. I might have to get some advice,
Bowen,
Sam. I don't know what I'm going to do.
What a season he's having at West Ham, by the way. Jared Bowen, he might get himself back in the England squad, which he deserves to, you know. But I think Trent, like I said, definitely midfield for me. I mean, when Gary came and we got Jock Morrison, Jock came as a centre half. I moved him into the anchor man, sat in front of the 2 centre halves there. And he never moved from there with me because he wasn't the quickest at the back, like I mean. So he didn't get exposed as much, but his passing range was very, very good, like I mean. So
a few players moved out of his way quickly.
Yes.
Yeah, not many players played as a 10 around him.
I remember Brentford.
It all went wide.
Brentford away when he threw a Brentford player in his own dressing room, picked him up and threw him in. Imagine that today in the tunnel.
Andy Morrison.
Yeah, Andy Morrison seriously picked him up
yeah.
and threw him in. He was moaning, "Shut up, get in."
Back onto the striker or the attacker front. I think it's so fascinating this season, particularly. We're talking a lot about clubs needing strikers, needing goal scorers.
Yeah.
Alexander Isak continues to
very good,
stand out. Obviously, at one of your former clubs. Take Haaland out of the equation, who obviously has been injured for a while as well. Where do you rate Isak in terms of the best strikers in the league? Obviously, there's others. I'm a big Ollie Watkins fan, but where are you sort of rating him?
I think he's top 4 for me. I think he's starting to get better and better. This is his second season, but they've got 2. Because you've got Wilson fit as well. They've got 2 opportunities to score goals or are scoring goals on a regular basis. If Wilson hadn't been predominantly injured for most of his career, I think he'd have been in the England squad a lot more than he is because he is a proven goal scorer in the Premier League. So the pair of them together are a great advantage for Newcastle in the goals that they score to win games. Whereas where we talked about Arsenal of struggling because they haven't got one, and of course that means that Chelsea are struggling because they don't seem to have one. Newcastle seem to have, if the ball fit, 2 that can win some games for them. But yeah, I think he's certainly going, and not just a goal scorer. He's clever outside the box. When he picks the ball up, it looks like he can beat a man or 2 as well. You know.
He fits that Newcastle profile, doesn't he, under Eddie Howe, that kind of transition team. But, he can play, like you say, he can play anywhere in that front 3. He can play a bit wider. But goal, Sam will tell you, goals from anywhere in the front line is so important, isn't it? Not just your number 9. It's, getting, you look at Saka's got 9 goals or whatever it is this season. It's so important those wide players chip in with the goals and
Man United have got the same problem.
Yeah, you've seen how many goals they've scored? Something like 19 in the Premier League. It's half.
But if you look what the front men have scored, they've hardly scored any.
Yeah, it's crazy.
So I watched them against Wigan the other night, like I mean, and well, I don't know what's happened to Marcus Rashford again. I mean, was it 30 plus last year?
Wow.
And he just looked out of sorts again, like I mean, and. Wigan didn't completely overpower Wigan by any stretch of the imagination, which I expected him to.
Yeah. And Hoyland's not scoring either, is he? He's got one Premier League goal, and they say
that lad's life is misery now because he's whether he'll ever recover or not now. Because as long as his manager tells him, whatever you do, don't read social media or the press ever, and try and stay focused on internally in the building, which is a very difficult job to do, and keep up practicing and hopefully that will, in goal scoring terms, turn the corner. Because if it doesn't, then the price they've paid for him, it'll be like yet another. Because they're all talking about Anthony, aren't they? Like, now
A lot of money.
Their signings, and then we got to talk about Sir Dave Brailsford, who I know reasonably well. He's got a massive task in turning Manchester United into the club that it used to be. He's got to try and. I think personally, what he finds is it's not him that knows how to do it. So they headhunt the right people to say, let's come in. I think they've already started with one. I can't remember. Not sure what his name was.
What he has said, hasn't he, Dave Brailsford? He spoke about that he knows about winning and how to create a winning culture. And he said he doesn't really know about football as well as other people. So I think that's the first thing, isn't it? Understanding that he's not going into it, because obviously everyone's going to say, "What's Dave Brailsford going to bring to Man United? He doesn't understand football."
Well,
he understands winning, doesn't he?
It depends how good his knowledge is or how good the people. His first two people that he puts behind the scenes, and who he gets rid of at Man United, because it's crying out for change. And where will the axe fall?
Yeah,
which is not nice to say, because you're gonna put people out of work. But I'm sure the axe is going to fall in quite a few places, and then rebuild it. But the pressure on him and the amount of media attention is something that he probably felt he could have done without, because he'd be scrutinised right the way through to the very, very end, and he'll find his life to be intruded more than it's ever been intruded in his entire life, no matter how much success he had at the cycling, which he did. This is Man United, so they'll be looking at everything he's done in his entire life now.
Man United continue to be fascinating. Like, when you think that something else can't happen, something happens, something keeps happening there. We talk about the lack of goals they're having, then they're often linked with all players as well. They're linked with a player that you worked with at Stoke, which sounds crazy until you go on to say Choupo-Moting, obviously the Bayern strike, and I remember seeing him when City played Bayern. They're linked with him. What was your experience of him? What do you make of this?
Well, I think the black and white version of it is, I've released someone who scored in the Champions League final, so it's not a good storyline, that one, is it? But of course,
he wasn't very good when he was.
I've got two stories.
That probably helped him.
Yeah, I've got two stories, and one of them I think I can tell and get away with, because I think Peter Crouch just told it on another podcast. So, the first one is, when I went in there, the club was saying to me, "Look, Choupo-Moting's on X amount of money. He won't stay in the Championship. He's too good for that.
Yeah,
he's going to go." And it was one of those. So he was going anyway, regardless of my opinion. But he stayed for about 3 weeks pre-season. And I remember back then the rule always was, if you want to leave the ground not with the team or whatever it is, because you're trying to build a culture, and especially a place like that, you want to get it back to a bit of team spirit. You have to tell the manager or the staff like a couple of days before, and organise it. Otherwise, it's a fine. So we flew to St. Pauli, which was Hamburg, to play a pre-season friendly, because the club had a link up with him. So of course everyone flies there. Club put private plane on, great expense, and we get there, and of course he's from Hamburg. And I get wind of afterwards we'd lost, and it was a horrific game. And I got wind that him and another player were going to come and say, "We're going to stay in Hamburg because our families are here." And I was raging, and I probably made one of those decisions as a manager where. Anyway, he came in to see me, said, "Coach, can I stay in Hamburg? My family live in." I went, "No." And I thought, I probably made the wrong decision, but I had to stick with it. Because the point was, everyone, we're either in it together or we're not. And this was one of the problems there. So anyway, so he ended up, I seen him talking to the chief exec on the steps of a plane, trying to convince him. Chief exec came to see me, said, "Look, let him go." And I went through with it, and I think he went all the way back to Manchester and then flew straight back out to Hamburg, which probably seemed a bit petty at the time. But
that's old school stuff.
But that was old school stuff. But the point was, it was very easy. You can't, there has to be a little bit of discipline. But anyway, correct. So I've done that to a Champions League winner. I've got the feeling that Choupo-Moting's had the last laugh in all of this. Sure. And I don't think he'll be I'm sure he won't be telling the same story about me on a podcast anyway.
But for me, it's always made clear for me, if you want to stay over, you have to ask the day before.
Okay.
So if you're travelling down to London and you've got family in London, you're living up in the northwest, or a player wants to go somewhere or whatever it is, or stay over in that particular game, you ask the day before. So there's no confusion about it, like you mean. And if you don't ask the day before and you come and ask after the game, you're going, "No, you should have asked yesterday."
Yeah.
Simple.
Discipline.
We had a code of conduct. It was just when we had to print it in many different languages because most of the lads, the French lads or the Italian lads or the Spanish lads, can't understand it in English. So we had to have it printed in their. We had to print it in their language. You know what I mean? So,
what else was on it, Sam?
I mean, well, all sorts, but how we behave, how we dress, how we report anything that's wrong, how we report our injuries. Can't come in on a Monday and start training and pull out again and say I feel my calf because they felt the calf after the game and thought, I don't want to come in Sunday for treatment. You know what I mean? So you got all those, as well as the sun was in my eyes, Gaffer, and the wind, it was too windy today and all that rubbish, when the alarm didn't go off. Oh, God. How many alarms never went off for the lads who were late, but it's funny, isn't it? Because when you sat there, the manager listening, you're going, as if I've not heard this one a million times. And they're looking at you dead seriously, thinking you're going to say that's what's really happened. You know what I mean? And you go, oh.
So like dealing with children, it sounds like
sometimes,
not doing your homework excuses, yeah.
It's like don't take the mickey like that.
Some creative players trying to get out of being fined, aren't they? A few times.
Yeah. What's your most creative excuse you've heard for something?
Excuse. Do you know what I heard one once? I can't remember the exact player, but there was something that had got sent through like a pre-season program or something, and a player claimed, and he came back about half a stone overweight, and a player claimed his dog had eaten his pre-season program. So he couldn't find it. He couldn't find it. And that was it. I said, well, could you not just have rang back up and got another one? Yeah, I went to find it. I think my dog had eaten it. And you're like,
with a straight face.
You sat there, and like Sam says, there's part of you laughing because it's, it's like anything. You got good relationships with most of the players and he's getting away with one. But
that's a bit like Ian Marshall with his heart monitor.
Yeah. And
we let him go back home, because Marshall was 30 odd, he lived in Leicester, so I'd let him travel up later on in the week and say, so take your heart monitor with you. He brought his heart monitor back like he should have been dead, so he finally admitted he put it on the dog.
I used to wear two of them on a Sunday when I was captain at Charlton. I had a player that said, I'm not going to do it. And I said, well, I ain't coming in on a Sunday. So give it to me and I'll do 2 runs if I have to because I ain't coming in. And I used to wear 2 heart rate monitors because one player just would not do it. And you knew all the team were going to have to come in. There's some creative stuff out there.
And they never noticed that his was identical to yours.
God, he's fit. He's doing really well.
Oh, I love that. Also, I'm going to say that Choupo-Moting owes you a thank you because I'm going to guess that you taught him discipline and that he went on from that moment and never did it again. And
who's looking at buying him again? Sorry,
United are rumoured.
Are they?
Yeah,
he's worked under Tuchel though, and he's always followed Tuchel wherever he's gone. I think he worked under him at Mainz, PSG. So I think it'd be very hard for him to...
coach.
Yeah, it'd be hard for him to... you had a run-in with him.
Coach,
why is he not your favourite coach?
It's just his arrogance at Chelsea when we beat him when I was at West Brom. Enjoy your victory, he said after, arrogantly, So I thought, oh no, not for me, man.
Yeah, I will enjoy it, Tuchel.
We did win 5-2, so...
Talking about Tuchel and one of his former clubs of Chelsea.
But he is
Crikey.
He's a very, very good coach, very good manager, obviously. But
Champions League.
Not taking that away from him, but
winning the Champions League must feel like a lifetime ago for Chelsea. Currently sitting 10th in the Premier League. This week, as we record, they've been beaten by Middlesbrough in the semis of the Carabao Cup, 1-0. Obviously, they've got the second leg to come now. Goodness me, how important is the second leg for them now?
Massive.
It's going to be crucial, isn't it?
Yeah. Crucial to his season.
Yeah, just can't get them. For lots of reasons, can't get them going, can he? At the moment,
he's going to get a lot of leeway if he gets them to the final and can win it. Yeah. You get a lot of leeway with all the disturbing performances in the league, So unless he can get it together as quick as the end of January and start getting them up around 6th, 5th, and you get away with it if he's won the cup. But other than that, it's going to be difficult for him because he's only going to be ended up sooner or later the same as the previous managers.
They've shown signs, haven't they? They've just been so erratic, haven't they? They've shown, which you'd imagine they would do with the players they've got, but they can't quite do it consistently, can they?
This stat, Gary, about this related to goals, chances, stats.
Right.
And I'm going, Well, they've lost.
Yeah.
The stats saying they should have had this many chances to score goals, but they haven't.
Missing those chances.
They haven't. But they haven't. So their ratio to scoring a goal on this stat should have meant that they should have scored more goals, but they haven't. So why have that stat? It's a pathetic stat. What's it doing there? So every game they've played, I think, nearly every game they've played, their perspective in terms of scoring has always been better than the opposition's, but they've hardly ever won. So I'm thinking, why do you keep talking about? Why do you keep putting it up on the telly and saying perspective goals is this ratio is much higher than the opposition, but at the end they haven't won.
Yeah,
it's just I mean, throw it out the window. I love stats, but not that. I mean,
I love stats.
Oh, lads,
I'm not an XG.
Lads, look at how many goals you should have scored, but you're unlucky. Let's go on to the next game. You know what I mean? Yeah, full marks.
I have to admit, when Cole Palmer went in the summer, I thought it was an odd move, and I wondered how he'd get on at Chelsea. But he's made himself the main man, and I don't know if that speaks highly of him or it shows you the, perhaps after spending £1 billion, where Chelsea are.
Well, I think he's impacted the team, hasn't he? They've signed a lot of players that don't seem to have yet impacted the team. I know they've signed them for long term, and there's reasons why they've done what they've done, so they can probably spend a little bit more initially. I think if you look at, it's interesting. I listened to an interview that he did the other day, and he spoke about Man City, wanted him to either stay or go, but not on loan. And that seemed quite strange, but he's made a brave move, hasn't he? To leave, I presume, his boyhood club and leave a club that he desperately wanted to play for. But he's one of those young players you have to admire because he wants to play football. He didn't want to sit on the bench for 2 or 3 seasons somewhere. And he's gone in and impacted Chelsea. What he's got beautifully, he's got lovely end products, hasn't he? You talk about stats, you talk about nearly scoring. He finishes moves often, and he's got that little bit of a feel.
He did actually miss a couple of
he's going to, isn't he?
Didn't it? So, which was unusual for him, actually, the way he's going. And they give him responsibility of penalties.
Yeah, that's an interesting one. Isn't it?
And he takes that up to now, he's taking that no problem at all, like I mean. So, and in terms of creative terms,
So we like to finish the pod with quick fire questions. It's a running joke now that they're never quick fire, but we'll try. So another listener question for you. So Jill Harry has asked, now this is very specific. Did you ever have an interview at Fulham QPR or anywhere else while you were at Birmingham?
I think it's really interesting. I had this quite a lot when I was at Birmingham, and you always get interest. If you're doing well, you always get interest. You always get interest through your agent, and that's how it works. Now, the challenge you have is, most of the time as a manager, you have a release clause. It's really simple. If they sack you, they have to give you X. If you want to leave, they have to give you X. So if you want to leave, you just leave. No one can stop. If someone activates that clause, nobody can stop you legally from doing it. So I think the fact of the matter is, it was never my intention to leave when I was there. And look, managers sometimes would meet clubs whilst in a job. Clubs would speak to managers whilst having a manager there. It works both ways, but it always feels like if ever a manager was to do that, it's disloyal and it's always the same. But it's it's the answer to that was there was interest, but that's about all I can say really.
There is no loyalty either way, is there?
No, but you can't. No, but I think the fans want the loyalty.
Oh, no, fans do. You
understand
let the fans down, but I mean, once the fans understand the circumstances, most of them are genuinely believe that's we've lost him. But
well, how do most people leave their job?
Can't blame him for bettering himself.
No, most people would do it in their own jobs, wouldn't they? Like if another club or if another company rings someone up and says, "I would
never leave No Tippy Tappy."
Would you ever? Have you ever been
tippy
tappied up or not by another podcaster?
It's one they still get talked about how much money they earn, like you mean, and when they never talk about how much money the golfers, tennis players, Formula One, and boxers earn. That never. Footballers are always paid too goddamn much, like you mean.
Actors.
Never going to change in actresses. I mean, so that's
not podcasters though, which is why we need more subscribers, Sam.
No, that's true.
Yes.
Okay. We need more subscribers.
Okay. Best player you've ever managed?
Best player I've ever managed. Oh wow, that's an interesting one. Probably if I look at it in terms of performance, I had Matty Vidra at Derby. And he was in the under-23s at the time when I went in there. I think they'd almost given up on him a little bit and had signed him for decent money. And we just got him going. Talk about like psychologically getting into a player's head and believing in them and really understanding what makes them tick. And we really sort of helped him. Obviously, he's got the ability and it was all in, but we've helped him to turn that season around. I think he finished as a championship top scorer that year. And he was very few times as a manager, you think, this game's tight, but you have one player who just keeps doing something special in a game to win you the game. And he was that player. I mean, he was outstanding. So, yeah, just off the top of my head, probably someone like Matty Vidra, I think, as a player, is so super talented. And, shame he's not in the UK banging goals in right now. But
thank you. This is going well. How highly does Gary rate his former Stoke goalkeeper, Jack Butland? Because Souness says he thinks he should be considered for England.
Well, why did he dip away?
Yeah, Jack at the time. When I went into Stoke, Jack at the time, I felt the same. He had every single tool to be one of the best goalkeepers around. And I think, sometimes when you have a player and they're just in that run of form where they're maybe trying too hard or they're trying to get out of a bit of a poor period, and no matter what they do, it just doesn't seem to work. And maybe they have to move on and rebuild their career. But certainly, in terms of capability, in terms of potential, I think he's got the stature. He makes big saves. He's a good kicker with both feet. I think sometimes in the past he's probably tried to do too much, where maybe just let your abilities speak for themselves. But he's a good character. I think he's got everything. I don't know whether he's going to challenge.
Where is he now, anyway?
He's at Rangers. I think he's at Rangers at the moment. Yeah, I think he went to Rangers, didn't he? And he's doing well up there. So, yeah, he's a good goalkeeper, and there's no doubt he's got the ability to challenge for an England spot, whether that's one of the three positions.
Is it true that you nearly got the Rangers job back in 2017?
I don't know how close I was to getting it, but I met them. It was after I left Birmingham.
Well, why didn't you go?
Well, because I didn't get offered the job. That's why. But I remember meeting them, and I was told that I was down to the last two. I think it was the Portuguese manager.
There's nothing worse than that.
Honestly. So
I got down to the last two at England with Steve McLaren.
But I don't know how close I was to it. But it was certainly one that you look back and you think, wow, that would have been an amazing opportunity for any 52,000 season ticket holders and whatnot.
Sally McCoy over it. Man.
Yeah, don't know how close I was, but I think I was reasonably close.
I used to act when I was younger, and I got down to the last two for a reoccurring part on Emmerdale once. So how my life would have been different, Sam. Do you know what? I don't watch it, so I can't even remember. But yes.
Your accent's not strong enough.
Do you not think? No, my dad loved it. He loves Emmerdale.
You need your proper accent.
Yeah.
Like North
and I wouldn't have been here now, would I, Sam? So that's all that matters. True. Yes. Last two questions. Who finishes higher this season? Newcastle, Spurs or Villa?
Oh, that's a very tricky question.
Wow. Do you know what? If I had to put money on it at the moment, I'd probably say Villa.
Oh, okay.
I always want somebody to come from the pack and surprise us all, which makes the Premier League so exciting and why it's still the wealthiest league in the entire world, and should never be changed for all those who are getting greedy about super leagues and that. Just sort of throw that one in again.
I liked it.
And so Villa, I'd like to see breaking the mould and finishing like Newcastle did last year. Break the mould like the most famous Leicester year ever, and they won by 10 points.
You want Villa to win it?
You know what I mean? Not well. I don't think they're going to win it, but if they can finish in the top four, it'd be on the chin.
Yeah.
And anything past the top four is a miracle. Third.
Yeah, I'd like them taking points off everybody around at the top.
Well, I hate to mention it knowing that you're a Man City fan, but the performance against Man City, I thought they were absolutely outstanding. They were outstanding. It's probably the first time I've seen them this year. I thought, wow, they have got a chance, because they were that good.
Again, whether the squad would hold up. When I finished at Bolton, the squad couldn't hold up. We were third this time of the year, and our squad just wasn't big enough. It was never gonna last. Like I mean, so we ended up finishing fifth.
And last question today: is there one club that you would love to manage or indeed return to one day? What's like the
He loves to manage in the Premier League. He's already said that.
Yes.
It won't matter who it was. As long as you can have a go.
Well, yours is Manchester United. You always say that.
Always Man United. Yeah.
Have you got one in your heart?
Do you know what? I can't say it because no matter what I say, if someone's managing there at the moment, it's going to look horrendous, isn't it? So I'm going to make it a real quick fire question, and I'm going to abstain unless maybe one by the sea somewhere in Europe, somewhere nice, somewhere sunny. Go. Yeah, or even Dubai with Sam. Maybe Sam will take me as his assistant manager one day to Dubai.
Well, don't steal my podcast unless we're all going. Thank you so much for being with us today.
Well, I think we should do one from Dubai.
Right, you speak to William Hill, Sam, and I'm there. I'll be there. I promise. Thank you.
Pleasure. Happy New Year to everybody.
Thank you so much.
It's a great 2024, everybody. Thank you.
And don't forget, subscribe. Gary Rowett, thank you so much for being here today. Sam, thank you very much.
Thank you.
We will be back next week. We're here every week now. I don't think Sam's taken any more Dubai holidays unless it's planning for No Tippy Tappy Football live from Dubai. We'll see you soon.